A blind baby elephant stood crying in the exact same spot for 730 days, refusing to eat, refusing to move, slowly dying, while the entire world watched helplessly. But what he was waiting for in that one spot would prove that elephants possess a kind of hope and memory that science is only beginning to understand. So what could possibly make a grieving animal wait for 2 entire years? The morning sun climbed over the dusty plains of northern Thailand, casting long shadows across the 50 acres of the Elephant Nature Park Sanctuary in Chiang Mai. Among the dozens of rescued elephants wandering freely through the reserve, one stood completely still. His name was Kam La, and he had not moved from the same spot beside an old tamarind tree for 730 days. Exactly. Dr. Siraporn Shalert stood at the wooden observation deck, binoculars pressed tight to her eyes, watching the young elephant with the same worry and confusion that had defined the past 2 years of her work. At just 4 years old, Kam La should have been playing with the other young elephants, splashing in the cool mud pools, or searching for treats hidden by the sanctuary workers. Instead, he remained stuck to his spot, his blind eyes staring at nothing, his trunk sometimes reaching out to touch the rough bark of the tree beside him. The elephant's blindness was not what made his case so strange. The sanctuary had successfully helped several blind elephants over its 20-year history. What made Kam La different was his complete refusal to leave this one location. He would eat only if food was brought right to him. He would drink from buckets placed within his trunk's reach, but he would not move. Not for food, not for water, not even when heavy monsoon rains turned the ground beneath him into thick mud that rose past his ankles. Kam La's story had begun in the logging camps of Myanmar, where he was born to a working elephant named Mai Bua Thong. The logging industry, though officially banned, still operated in faraway regions, using elephants to pull timber through areas too difficult for trucks and machines. Mai Bua Thong had worked in these camps for over 15 years, and Kam La's birth had been both a happiness and a problem for the handlers who managed her. When Kam La was just 6 months old, a terrible accident changed everything. A huge teak log broke free from its chains, rolling down a steep hill and hitting both mother and baby. Mai Bua Thong got severe leg injuries that would end her working life. Kam La took an awful blow to his head, causing damage that would slowly steal his vision over the next months. By his first birthday, he was completely blind. The logging company, unable to use either elephant for work, sold them to a tourist camp near the Thai border. There, Mai Bua Thong was used for elephant rides even with her limp, while Kam La was kept chained nearby, considered too young and too disabled to make money. For 3 years, mother and son stayed together, chained within sight of each other. Mai Bua Thong, working long hours, carrying tourists through the jungle, while her blind son waited for her return each evening. Dr. Siraporn's group had rescued them both when Kam La was 3.5 years old. An unknown tip had led to an inspection that showed the terrible conditions at the tourist camp, too many elephants, bad medical care, and the illegal use of hurt elephants for making money. The rescue operation saved 17 elephants, including Mai Bua Thong and Kam La. The trip to the sanctuary took 3 days, with the elephants moved in specially made vehicles that let them travel in comfort. Throughout the trip, Kam La stayed pressed against his mother's side, his trunk wrapped with hers, seeming terrified of losing contact, even for a second. Mai Bua Thong was equally protective, making low rumbling sounds that seemed meant to calm her frightened son. When they arrived at the sanctuary, the animal doctors did complete checkups of all the rescued elephants. Mai Bua Thong's leg injury was far worse than anyone had known. Decades of working on damaged joints had created severe pain and bone problems. The future looked grim. Despite strong treatment, including pain medicine, physical therapy, and special diet, May Buathong's condition kept getting worse. The sanctuary's weekly staff meeting had become more and more tense as Kam La's condition kept getting worse. Dr. Siraporn sat at the head of the long wooden table, surrounded by animal doctors, elephant keepers, and behavior experts, all of whom shared the same look of frustrated helplessness. The medical reports spread across the table, painted a scary picture of a young elephant slowly dying from what could only be called a broken heart. Narong Buntham, the sanctuary's most experienced elephant keeper, spoke first. In his 40 years of working with elephants, he had never seen anything like Kam La's case. The young elephant's physical health was falling apart, despite getting enough food. His weight had dropped by nearly 200 pounds over the past year. His body's defenses were weak, making him get sick easily. Most worrying was his complete lack of interest in life beyond his watch beneath the tamarind tree. The behavior data was equally troubling. Cameras watching Kam La 24 hours a day showed patterns that suggested deep mental pain. Every morning at dawn, about the same time his mother had died, Kam La would become upset. His trunk would sweep the ground in searching patterns. His ears would push forward, and he would make sounds that sounded heartbreakingly like calls for Mai Bua Thong. This behavior would continue for roughly 30 minutes before he would settle back into his frozen stillness. Dr. Siraporn had tried everything normal wisdom suggested. They had brought Kam La to meet Mei Fueng, a gentle older female elephant who had successfully adopted orphaned babies in the past. Mei Fueng had approached Kam La with obvious motherly interest, using her trunk to touch him gently and making the low rumbling sounds that elephant mothers use to comfort their young. Kam La had allowed her presence, but showed no interest back, staying focused on his spot beneath the tree. They had tried music therapy, playing recordings of forest sounds and elephant calls that might wake up positive memories or curiosity. They had filled his nearby space with new textures, smells, and objects designed to reach his remaining senses. They had even talked with a Buddhist monk who specialized in blessing troubled animals, hoping that spiritual help might work where science had failed. Nothing had worked. The discussion turned to the possibility that perhaps Kam La's blindness was stopping him from properly understanding his world and moving past his sadness. Dr. Somchai proposed a wild idea. What if they could give some of Kam La's vision back? Recent advances in animal eye surgery had made cataract operations increasingly successful in elephants. While Kam La's blindness was caused by injury rather than cataracts, there was a possibility that surgical help might restore partial sight. The idea created immediate debate. The surgery would be expensive, risky, and had never been tried on an elephant with Kam La's specific type of injury. The recovery time would require sedation and medical work that might scare him even more. And there was no promise of success. The surgical team would basically be experimenting, hoping that restoring vision might break the mental loop that kept Kam La trapped in his sadness. Dr. Siraporn found herself torn between hope and caution. She had built the sanctuary on ideas of minimal interference, allowing elephants to heal naturally within a supportive space. But Kam La was not healing. He was dying slowly, and traditional approaches had completely failed. The surgery represented a gamble, but doing nothing guaranteed a sad ending. The vote was close, but finally the team decided to move forward. They would bring in Dr. Catherine Morrison, a famous animal eye doctor from the University of California, who had successfully done similar surgeries on captive elephants. The procedure would be carefully planned, with every possible backup prepared for. They would give Kam La one chance at a different future. The call came on a humid morning in March, 3 months after Kam La's surgery had proven that his frozen state was mental rather than physical. Dr. Siraporn was looking over feeding schedules when her assistant, ploy, burst into the office with news that would change everything. The Myanmar Wildlife Conservation Society had contacted them about an urgent rescue operation involving 3 elephants from a closed logging camp near the border, the same camp where Kam La and May Buathong had been rescued 2.5 years earlier. The logging operation had finally been shut down by police following years of pressure from conservation groups. Among the elephants waiting for rescue was an older female, about 30 years old, who had worked alongside May Buathong during their years in the logging industry. The Myanmar team believed this elephant, named Pang Dao, might remember May Buathong and possibly even Kam La from their time together in the camps. Dr. Siraporn felt her heart race as she thought about what this could mean. Elephants were famous for their amazing memory and complex social bonds. If Pang Dao had known Mae Buathong, her presence might provide comfort to Kam La, a connection to his mother that could help him deal with his sadness. It was a long shot, but given Kam La's continued decline, any possibility was worth exploring. The rescue operation was approved immediately. Dr. Siraporn personally traveled to Myanmar to check the elephants and organize their transport. What she found at the abandoned logging camp was heartbreaking. Pang Dao was chained in a small clearing, too thin and bearing the scars of decades of hard labor. But when Dr. Siraporn approached and mentioned May Buathong's name, the elephant's reaction was clear. Her ears flared forward, she made a low rumbling sound, and her trunk reached out toward Dr. Siraporn as if searching for her old friend. The trip back to Thailand took 5 days due to complex border rules and the need for careful transport of the scared elephants. Throughout the trip, Dr. Siraporn watched Pang Dao closely, noting the intelligence in her eyes and the gentle way she acted with the younger elephants sharing the transport vehicle. There was something special about this elephant, a depth of character that suggested she might indeed be the key to reaching Kam La. The sanctuary staff prepared for Pang Dao's arrival with a mixture of hope and doubt. They had tried bringing other elephants to Kam La before, always with disappointing results. But Dr. Siraporn insisted that this was different. Pang Dao was not just any elephant. She was a living connection to Kam La's mother, someone who had shared Mai Buathong's experiences and might carry memories that could reach the grieving young elephant. Pang Dao arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, and the sanctuary team gave her 2 weeks to relax and adjust to her new home before trying any meeting with Kam La. During this adjustment period, the staff worked to fix her physical health while watching her behavior patterns. What they discovered was remarkable. Pang Dao was very gentle and seemed to have an unusual ability to sense the emotional states of other elephants. The meeting was planned with careful detail. Rather than forcing a direct encounter, the team decided to house Pang Dao in a pen next to Kam La's area, allowing the elephants to smell and hear each other without seeing each other. The hope was that slow getting used to each other would reduce stress and allow any recognition or connection to develop naturally. The first sign that something amazing was happening came on the very first night. 6 months after Pang Dao's arrival, the change in Kam La was nothing short of amazing. The young elephant who had stood frozen in sadness for 2 years was now an active, playful member of the sanctuary's young herd. His weight had returned to healthy levels. His coat shined with the glow of good food and regular mud baths. And most remarkably, his personality had grown in ways that showed the smart, curious elephant he had always been beneath his pain. Dr. Siraporn wrote down every stage of Kam La's recovery, knowing that his case represented something never seen before in elephant behavior science. She worked with Dr. Joshua Plotnick from Hunter College, a leading expert in elephant thinking, to study what Kam La's 2-year watch revealed about elephant memory, sadness, and social bonding. Their research would eventually be published in the Journal of Comparative Psychology, becoming one of the most talked about papers in the field of elephant behavior studies. The relationship between Kam La and Pang Dao had grown into something beautiful and complex. While Pang Dao clearly served as a replacement mother figure, their bond went beyond simple replacement of what Kam La had lost. The older elephant seemed to understand his blindness naturally, always placing herself to guide him through new spaces and warning him about obstacles with specific sounds they had developed together. Kam La, in turn, showed a devotion to Pang Dao that echoed his relationship with Mei Bua Thong, but was also uniquely their own. What interested researchers most was Kam La's behavior regarding the tamarind tree. Even as he explored his range throughout the sanctuary, investigating every corner of the 50-acre reserve with Pang Dao's guidance, he returned to the tree each morning at dawn. But the nature of these visits had changed completely. Instead of standing in grief-stricken stillness, Kam La would spend a few minutes at the spot, touching the tree gently with his trunk, while Pang Dao stood nearby. Then he would move on to the day's activities, as if he had completed some necessary ritual of remembering. Dr. Plotnick explained that this behavior suggested smart thinking. Kam La was showing what researchers called episodic memory, the ability to recall specific events from his past and process them emotionally. The morning visits to the tree were his way of honoring his mother's memory, while knowing that life had to continue. It was grief changed into remembrance, pain processed into memorial. The sanctuary staff began to understand that Kam La's 2-year watch had not been meaningless suffering. In elephant culture, where bonds between mothers and babies can last a lifetime, Kam La's waiting represented a level of devotion and hope that spoke to the depth of elephant emotional ability. He had somehow understood, perhaps through smell memories or sounds he had heard while still with Mei Bua Thong, that Pang Dao existed and might someday come. This theory gained support when keepers discovered that Kam La responded with particular excitement to certain smells connected with the logging camps, specifically the scent of teak wood and a particular type of rope used in timber operations. When they tested his reaction by bringing these scents on purpose, Kam La would become alert and search his space carefully, as if expecting something familiar to appear. These were not random memories, but specific connections with his earliest experiences, when both his mother and Pang Dao would have been present. The sanctuary began using Kam La's story in their educational programs, and the response was overwhelming. Visitors from around the world came specifically to see the elephant who had waited 2 years for hope to return. His story touched people dealing with their own sadness and loss, offering a powerful message about patience, memory, and the possibility of healing even after deep pain.